Welcome back to Wake Up Canada News. I'm Brad Wilder. With me in the studio today is Mr. Ken Drysdale. Ken's been on the show before. If you haven't seen that episode, I really do recommend you go back and take a look. We're climbing to the 2,000 view mark on it, and there's a lot of great information in this particular interview that we've done before, Ken. Thanks a lot for being here today. I really do appreciate it. The true facts, COVID-19 or C19, let's send people to the website straight away. So it's the true facts, C19.com. We want you to go there. We want you to take a look at the website. You're going to find an 89-page report that is going to detail and outline what's really going on with COVID-19, not only here in Canada, but around the world. Ken, lots to discuss today before we get into the big event. Obviously, there's a lot changing in the world right now. We're seeing a lot coming out of the U.S. We're seeing our own political leaders and our own medical leaders stepping aside, giving a little bit of a leeway of a break, possibly to kind of just calm things down within our country. You know, Justin's gone on vacation for a couple of weeks. We haven't seen or heard from Dr. Tam in months. Dr. Roussen's kind of fallen off the mark here in Manitoba. So let's step into that first off, because I think what they're trying to do, and I want to get your opinion, is to just kind of cool the engines or cool the jets.
Yeah, you know, the feeling that's going on in Canada right now is explosive. Folks have lost everything. You know, they've lost their businesses. They've lost their families. They've watched their mom and dad die alone in old folks' homes where they have been held back from that. Mm-hmm. So understandably, when folks are having the feeling that they're backed into a corner and things are becoming explosive, I believe.
Right.
And we need to dial that back just a little bit. And part of, I think, what the government is doing right now is they're stepping back in order to perhaps bring that temperature down a little bit. That's one way of looking at it. Mm-hmm. Another way of looking at it, and this bothers me, two things that have been going on. With Bonnie Henry in British Columbia, now her emails have come out under court order. You'll see posts on the internet about how this was leaked. It's not. Mm-hmm. She was ordered by a court order to release those emails, and now we find out that 14 months ago or a year and a half ago, something like that, she knew what was going on, and she knew what was happening with the experimental genetic treatments.
Right.
She knew people were getting hurt. So they're trying to step back from that. That is going to cascade across Canada. You know, there's been a court order in BC. That court order, I believe, will be repeated in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, across the country.
Yeah.
The other way of looking at that,
do you see a timeline in that, by the way?
a timeline with the courts.
Do you have inside knowledge that we don't know about?
No, I don't. I do have experience with the courts, though, and they are generally very slow. I know there's actions right across the country that ones that even I don't know about, and I know there's dozens and dozens of them.
Right. And
so you're going to see, I believe you're going to see announcements on those coming out, and you know the legacy media will be hiding those. You know, it's incredible to me. The legacy media over the last 2 days has been exploding about a newscaster at CTV News who was laid off or fired.
Lisa Laflamme.
Lisa Laflamme.
That's right.
What about the truckers? What about the nurses? What about those people who've contributed to our society and they were laid off? They were let go because they're unvaxxed. What about the airport workers?
They were unworthy. They were unworthy, and that's the part that bothers me the most, is that you considered us to be unworthy.
Yes.
And I tell you what, we have a lot of worth and a lot of value, and we're going to continue to bring that every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. That's what keeps Canada going. That's what makes Canada great, these people that are moving ahead. You know, I have no ill will towards Lisa Laflamme, and I feel bad what happened to her. But why are we putting such a huge focus on that when these folks, you know, your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, your mothers, your cousins, they've lost their jobs and they're struggling?
Distraction is the biggest thing that's happening right now. There's a distraction and a diversion from what's really going on, and a lot of people haven't seen that part of it. They'll still consider conspiracy theory. But the problem is that a lot of the conspiracy theories that, as an example with C19, same sort of scenario, we're seeing now that we're not conspiracy theorists anymore. We actually have some smarts. Just because you have that piece of paper doesn't make you smarter than me.
Yeah.
Common sense goes a long way in this day and age, and you just have to open your eyes and be a little bit acceptable to the other side, or listening to, and asking questions first and foremost.
Yeah.
Ask questions. There's been a lot that's transpired now in terms of information coming out. We're seeing the CDC change a little bit with their communications lately. Dr. Fauci has stepped back. Dr. Tam has disappeared. We're seeing doctors, nurses, we're seeing lawyers even start to step up. And we're starting to see, I guess, a little bit more of a push to say something's really wrong here, and we need to fix this, and we need to start, having those conversations, which is something that I've said from the beginning. Conversation is going to take us to the end of this. It's not going to be about using your fists or guns or knives or anything else or going to war. It's going to be about conversation. And again, verified facts, verified proof. And that's what you're all about. You've been able to create this 89-page document, the true facts on C-19. And I've read it, and there's a lot of great information in there. You really did your homework along with your team. Once you read that, you don't come back from it. There's no going and believing mainstream media anymore. You're going to start questioning everything. And that's part of, I guess, what this is meant to do, is to get people to open their eyes in a way that gives them that experience to say, I'm going to take this somewhere else now. I've had enough of the same daily rhetoric from mainstream, that going outside that box is really where the information lies. There's a lot smarter people than the people on mainstream media sitting there reading the same verbatim script that they keep getting handed on a daily basis. And that's where I think independent journalists like myself and True North and Rebel are really making an impact with Canadians and starting to make a difference in the world, because we're not telling the same verbatim stories that mainstream is, and nor do we expect to ever get those stories to come across our desks. That's what allows us to be the way we are as independents. It gives us that freedom to say, what story am I going to cover today? What am I going to talk about? What's important to get out there? And again, that's real journalism. Same thing with what we're doing here today, which again keeps us talking about the whole thing. And it was about communication. So coming up on September the 3rd, we are going to see some communication with your organization and you guys stepping up to kind of get the message out. And one of the things that we kind of exposed it on our previous episode, but it's all about safety. It's all about making sure that this isn't about an intimidation or anything like that. So why don't we talk about your event coming up, and let's get into that, because there's quite a few steps that have been implemented to get you to this position of the September the 3rd date and event. And let's just jump right in. So tell me about September the 3rd, first and foremost. What's going on?
Well, September the 3rd is going to be an event where we're asking people to come down to RCMP D Division Headquarters, which is at 1091 Portage Avenue. That's Portage Avenue at Dominion Street, I believe, for 1 p.m. And what we're doing there is we're asking the folks that come to bring a copy of the report. And we have been in communication with the RCMP. We have been in communication with the City of Winnipeg Police. We've been talking with a whole bunch of retired, inactive, and some active police officers, both in the RCMP and in the City of Winnipeg Police.
Right.
So the intent of this, let me back up a little bit. As everyone knows, we prepared this report back in March and April, and in April we sent it by registered mail to every single police detachment in Manitoba. And at that point, we started to develop also some contacts across the country, and this thing was picked up by tens of thousands of people right across Canada, and they repeated what we did. They took it down to their police stations, they hand-delivered it, they mailed it, they couriered it, and they also did it to all of the MPs, the members of Parliament, the senators, their members of the legislature, again, right across the country. So this report has been duplicated, I don't even know how
Tens
many.
of thousands
Tens
of
of
times
thousands
at
of
this
times.
point, yeah.
You know, our website, which we started 2 months ago, is over 70,000 unique visitors now. And I say unique visitors, it's not Ken Drysdale sitting in the basement going, load, load, load to get the numbers up. That's
No,
not the way it
actually,
works.
since our last interview, I've watched the numbers climb. We were at about 62, and now you're up
Yeah.
to 70. So, congratulations on that number. That's exposing the truth.
Yeah. So with all of that, and with tens of thousands of people across the country taking this to the police forces, our experience with some of the police just recently with some of the RCMP, what report? We never saw the report. Now, come on. We've got receipts for the report that you guys have received it hundreds of times.
Yeah.
It's even went to Brenda Lucky. In any case, so in dealing with the RCMP and dealing with our police contacts, it was suggested to us that we would go and have a gathering at the RCMPD division, and we would have as many citizens as we could come with a copy of the report and present it to the RCMP and ask for an investigation.
Right.
So we've set out on our website, and there's a separate page that's called Truth Event. You can click on that, and you'll see an evolving bunch of information on that, telling you where to go, what to do, what we're expecting. And also, as important, is our blog posts. We've got a continuing updating of information on this, where we've actually written a fairly decent sized document which is set out exactly what's going to happen there.
Right.
At 1 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday, September 3rd. And we've have sections in there where we tell you what we expect of the citizens. We expect a peaceful, respectful meeting and presentation to the RCMP. We want you to be prepared. We want you to be a citizen reporter. We want this to be the most recorded event ever. So bring your phones, bring your video cameras, film it, take photography, do everything you can to get this on the record, and then spread this far and wide. We have asked from the RCMP that we will treat them with respect, and we expect to be treated with respect. This will be a peaceful gathering of citizens who have genuine concerns.
I kind of like the way you put that actually a few days ago when we spoke, a meet and greet.
Yeah, it's
a meet and greet. And that makes it a little more friendly, a little more approachable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that, you want to make sure happens that day. This isn't about going in there with, fists in the air and fists flying. This is about being a patriot of this country and somebody who is willing to communicate. Again, that comes all back to communication and education and getting these people to see the light.
Yes.
Right?
And you're exactly right. I hear from people all over that are so frustrated and so angry, and there's wanting this thing to change now. What can we do today to make it change for tomorrow? And that's not possible. No. There's two things that happen in the world that make great change. One is revolution, and one is evolution.
That's right.
We don't want a revolution. We want to change things, but we want it to evolve. We want an evolution, which is a slow process, unfortunately, but the process of evolution stays. The process of revolution can change something overnight, but you have chaos, and sometimes it doesn't last, and then the next revolution comes along.
That's right. It's not about meant to break down the system. It's about making sure that the system stays intact, but really gets revamped.
Oh, yeah. And since my last few interviews, we have been contacted by a large number of police from across the country, retired RCMP officers, inactive Winnipeg police officers, active Winnipeg police officers, officers from the OPP, all over the country.
Right.
And it's not necessarily the rank and file police officer who doesn't see what's going on. It's the administration of these police forces. The orders are coming down from up high, and these folks on the front lines, just like us, just like you and I, they've got families to feed, they've got a career, and they're struggling with what to do. So part of what we're doing is we're demonstrating to them on September 3rd that we recognize that they're struggling. we're there to support them. We're there to give them a demonstration of will by the people that we want an investigation. And it's a little bit more difficult for the administration of the RCMP or whatever, the Winnipeg Police, to ignore us when there's thousands of residents who have taken the time out of their lives, I will say on a long weekend, and be at the RCMP and present one after another the reports. Will this cause the RCMP to act properly and create an independent and fair investigation? Maybe, maybe not. Regardless of what action the RCMP decides to take, that's a step in the direction for us. We can use whatever they do to further promote our cause and further wake up Canadians as to what's going on. If we get a fair and just investigation, we will be able to utilize that information to wake up Canadians. If we get something less than that, or the RCMP does not address us and does not come out to accept the report, we will use that as well to wake up Canadians. So I've heard people say to me, Ken, you're going down there and it's not going to make a difference. It will make a difference regardless of what the RCMP choose to do or not to do.
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct. There's an outcome here, and the outcome is either engage or don't engage.
Yes.
And the way that they choose to engage is also important, because they can engage from a tactical standpoint, or they can engage from a very polite, friendly meet and greet perspective. Yes. So the steps to get there, I mean, let's face it. You put a 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people in front of the RCMP building, the detachment or the headquarters downtown on Portage Avenue, 1091. September the 3rd, 1 o'clock, everybody gets there. Well, we still have another police force to worry about, another police force that definitely regulates the city.
Yes.
So now they're on your heels. They're saying you're, blocking traffic. You're doing all this stuff. You got too many people here, and you're the guy in charge, and we're here to write you a ticket. Well, you've kind of had to handle that, I guess, in a very, delicate way that, again, not only expresses what you're trying to bring to this event, but also making sure that they understand that this is the focus of bringing this to the event. This isn't about, again, any kind of combative situation. This is about, again, being friendly, polite, peaceful, and again, communicating that message. And whether it's a police member from the local Winnipeg Police Division or whether it's an RCMP officer, I guess those individuals, they too, need that communication. They need to get that education, and they need to see what you've done and how this relates back. And again, that'll lead to some of them asking some questions at the higher up level. One of the things that you mentioned, and you said that it's coming from the top. And it's like those guys are having to follow orders and do what they need to do because they need that paycheck. They need to go home at the end of the day. They need to feed their families. They need to have, everything that they got to pay for with wife and kids and everything, right? So I get that just like you do. To get them to understand is not a tough go because they've seen it, they've heard it, they're living it. But let's talk about the top down because that's where the real issue lies. I don't believe it's with every single member in the force. I believe that structure at the top is being directed much like the mainstream media gets directed on what they're going to say today. Here's your script today, read this. And it goes out to all of them. Same thing with police forces, same thing with our CMP divisions. So how do we get this RCMP division to be acceptful? How do you stop the Winnipeg police force from being combative with a crowd that maybe they're threatened by, not unable to, keep controlled in the sense that all of a sudden you've got 10,000 people. Some of them have filled out onto Portage Avenue. I mean, let's face it, the RCMP office has a huge lawn out front. So I think that's going to, stop some of that from spilling out onto the roadway. Heading back towards, was it Donald you said?
Dominion.
Dominion, yeah. So that whole area there, I mean, you can probably cut off Dominion and it's not going to be a big issue. The police aren't going to take too much notice or effect. But when you start cutting off Portage Avenue, that's where it becomes a bigger protest than probably what you're trying to achieve. Is that fair to say?
Well, we have clearly set out in our blog post to the people who are going to attend what we're expecting from them. We don't want any block traffic. As a matter of fact, we've also written a letter to the City of Winnipeg Police, and it's in one of our blog posts where we have let the City of Winnipeg Police know what we're doing, why we're there. We're going to be peaceful. And we've asked the City of Winnipeg Police for something. We know that in the past, sometimes these groups have been infiltrated by disruptors, people who are just there, not necessarily part of anything, just there to cause trouble.
Antifa.
Yeah.
Flat out Antifa. Yeah. That's the way it works.
And so we've told the City of Winnipeg Police we're aware of that, and we've asked the City of Winnipeg Police to provide a contingent of officers to protect us and to protect the public. So we have, and when I say we've been in communication with the police, we have been in communication with the police directly and indirectly. As you know, a month or so ago, I got a phone call from the City of Winnipeg Police saying they were monitoring all of my social posts and my communications. So they can't say they don't know about this.
They didn't stop by yet, just so you know. You said that they might, and I haven't seen them yet. But
So, we are taking care of these things. We also have, by the way, we have a post coming out shortly addressed to the residents in the area. Listen, I have a family. I have a home. And I don't want a whole bunch of folks standing in front of my house, hooligans standing in front of my house causing trouble. So we have a message to the residents. We will come in. We will be orderly. We will stay not very long. It's sort of up to the RCMP how long we're there, but we won't extend this, and we will leave your neighborhood as quickly as we can.
Come out and engage with us, and we'll be gone. Otherwise, we're standing here until you come out.
Yeah.
Right? Like it turns into that sort of scenario. And you've welcomed them out. You've welcomed the police, the local police, Winnipeg police, in. What more can you do? I mean, I believe that these are the steps that other rallies haven't taken along the way. That's caused fines, tickets, court dates, and a real world of trouble for some of those people who have been trying to get the message out like you are.
Yes.
But they've done it in a way that has been combative in a sense because they've left certain steps out. And I believe that your event on September the 3rd is going to be that one event that is going to actually make a difference and make a change and hopefully open some eyes. And if we can get the RCMP to kind of click on that and the local Winnipeg police to click on that, I think that's a good step in the positive direction for the province of Manitoba. I believe that the people that have been continuing to be blindsided by the mainstream media and our government to what the truth really is, I think that those people are going to have to start asking questions of themselves if they haven't already. The ones that have, some of them are still breaking out of their shells. You've seen that. They're like caught between that, geez, I think I know the truth, but it's hard for me to believe because I've been so, blinders on, and just believing what mainstream media has been telling me day after day.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about the information coming out, and maybe some folks aren't aware, but information with regard to your health has also not just been coming out about C19 and the experimental genetic treatments, but if you've been watching, there's been some huge announcements with regard to Alzheimer medications and the frauds that have been alleged over the studies that were allegedly copied and photoshopped, and that's just been coming out. And also with regard to antidepressants. They've been using antidepressants since the 70s, and now the CDC is coming out with all kinds of information about how that was perhaps not what they said it was. And there's been studies now coming out on how some of these drugs are causing suicides. And how long that's been known, I don't know. But my point on this is that this information is, this is starting to snowball. All kinds of information is starting to come out now about how we've been deceived over the years.
That's right.
And how they've been making incredible profits. That I saw something the other day about those Alzheimer's drugs that are in serious question now. The cost of that for a patient was like $27,000 a year for those drugs that they apparently knew weren't doing anything or more. So this is coming out in all kinds of ways, and I think there's going to be a lot more coming out. And unfortunately, this information is rocking people's fundamental understanding of the world. You know, we were raised in a certain way, and we were told certain things, and we could trust this and we could trust that. And now you're starting to be presented with information from all around you that perhaps that's not so true.
Right.
And people have a choice to make now. You know, you can hide your head in the sand. It's still coming. You can hide your head in your sand and you can be bowled over. Or you can wake up and take part and join us. And you know what? If you've got questions, get a hold of us. Go to our website. There's an email address there for me at contactthetruefactsc19.com. I answer every single email. To the chagrin of my wife at times. But I answer every email. I mean, if it's something ridiculous and someone's saying something ridiculous, I don't bother. But if you have questions and you have legitimate questions and you want to ask me, email me. Read the information on the blog. You know, it'll tell you what's going on here. There's a whole bunch of actions that are coming up from other groups as well. And we addressed that, that we weren't associated with any of those groups necessarily, not necessarily, we just weren't associated. And we've set out what our aims are, which are unique. You know, one of the other things I wanted to mention is that we're trying, you know, we really want this event to be peaceful, and we want it to send a solid message to Canadians. And so that also entails creating a common front or a recognizable image. And that's what this T-shirt is sitting back here. In our documentation, we've been urging citizens to show up with their cameras, to show up with a copy of the report, and to show up with wearing a white T-shirt that says truth on it. And, you know, we've seen all kinds of things. We've seen folks getting white T-shirts and with felt markers and glow stuff and whatever and doing that. But I also see many, many folks asking me, where can we get a T-shirt? And the time's running out. Right. So I ordered 100 of them. and it's as I've always said to you, you know, we won't sell you anything. We're not into the donation business. We don't want to get into that whole thing. So we will have these at the demonstration. If you haven't got one, if you haven't made one, we will be giving these out. We have limited numbers and limited sizes, but we'll provide that to you. And again, the idea is to see a sea of white T-shirts that say the truth on them. So if you're able, make yours. If you're able, go to a small shop here in Winnipeg and get one made. Don't count on ours. You can get one at the gathering, and we'll be there a little earlier. We'll be there about 12:30. You'll be able to find us. We'll be on one of the
Get your kids to make one and bling it up. Bling it up. Make it hot.
Yeah, absolutely. Make it white. Make it, again, we're
red and white. Yep.
Yeah, we're trying to make a statement, and we're trying to present a united front. And it might sound a little bit corny, but it's a good way to do it, we believe.
Well, this is going to be a day that is going to be infamous here in Canada, because I believe that once you hit this on September the 3rd here in Manitoba, that and you've brought this up and said there's some documentation that you're preparing for other provinces to partake in this going forward as well. A lot of people have been getting in touch. I guess you mentioned that they were starting to, you know, how do we put our own event on? Well, yeah. I guess you're coming out with a package there to kind of help those individuals get organized and do the right things. Again, making sure that every step is there and I's are dotted, T's are crossed kind of thing. And again, the biggest thing that I see is making sure that the Winnipeg Police Department doesn't feel threatened.
That's
right. Because the minute that they feel threatened is the minute that they change.
Yes.
And again, recognizing, and that's the greatest thing about this T-shirt is that it really makes us stand out.
Yes. And
by us standing out, it shows that we're the peaceful, and anybody who's not wearing one is possibly an intruder, an invader, an Antifa person.
Yeah.
So again, they have a very strict way of dressing as well. So we'll kind of, I think, see them coming. It could be the blue or pink hair. I don't know.
Well, we hope it. And also, again, you know, I want to emphasize that, you know, we're gathering at the RCMP station, and we've let the RCMP know what we're doing and what we're intending, what's going to happen, who's there. And we've also asked the Winnipeg Police to attend. We've asked them to be there to protect us from disruptive elements. You know, when you get 10,000 people together, there's always going to be the risk that something's going to happen. And so we want the citizens that are legitimately there to be vigilant. Again, have your phone, your camera, your video camera at hand, and film everything.
At the end of the day, the only message that you're trying to convey is the 89-page truth on COVID-19.
Absolutely.
And that's all it is. And if there's any more than that, that is brought on by other individuals who are disruptive, we'll say. And those people obviously will be dealt with accordingly by either the Winnipeg City Police, possibly the RCMP if they decide to get involved. And we also have an army of white T-shirts who are not going to allow that to happen either, that will, stand there and obviously say, you're not welcome here, and It's time for you to go.
Yep.
And if you don't, then we'll call the police in and take care of this, because they're on our side today. They're not on your side.
Yeah.
And that's the other view that, again, continues to happen, whether it's in the States or Canada. There seems to be this friction, this element of aggression between our police and it doesn't matter whether it's the RCMP or the Winnipeg Police or any police department in the country, and citizens. And we can't have that divide. Like I said, we can't leave the country ruined by destroying everything that makes us. We have to keep that infrastructure in place. We have to move past that. We have to keep the good people where they need to be, and we have to weed out the ones who are doing the detrimental things to us. You had mentioned the health people in British Columbia and that sort of thing, that her emails have been released. And I'm going back to that for just a minute, because I believe that following the money is something that's really important here. We talked about the police obviously earlier in the show, but we've got that trickle-down effect coming from information. We see that information is bleeding from the top. So while the lower end of those individuals, the workers, aren't necessarily seeing anything except what they're hearing here from the top, and they have to partake in that because they want the paycheck at the end of the day, the paycheck got a lot bigger for that person at the top. We need to follow that money. We need to go after that income, because we have already had confirmation that Dr. Hinshaw in Alberta took the money.
Yep.
The lady, the health officer in BC took the money. The one in Ontario took the money. How about our own Dr. Rusin here in Manitoba? How about Joss Reimer? Let's talk about some of their increased salaries over the past 2 years. We're talking almost $500,000 in wages for a 1 year of putting the same rhetoric out on a piece of paper that somebody else gave you to read. I wished I got paid that kind of money, Ken. I really do.
And you brought up something that's really important. When Dina Henshaw, who was the medical officer in Alberta through this period of time, she was under cross-examination a couple of months ago. And
that's right.
And Leighton Gray was there, and I can't remember who the other lawyer was there at the time, but they asked her, for her $500,000 salary, how did she come up with a decision to do what they did in Alberta? And her response was, well, I followed Ontario and BC.
That's right.
So you paid her $500,000 plus bonus for that?
Yeah, real educational woman there, really smart, really involved and engaged in her job, eh? Like, wow, following that job description to a T, I bet.
Well, I've been asking for folks, and if the person sees this, you know who you are. I've been asking for Dina Henshaw's resume, which apparently is out there, but I can't find. I would sure like to get my hands on that and publish it.
Let me see if I can get that for you before the week's over. Okay?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I did get a hold of Brenda Lucky's resume, and I went, "What? She's the commissioner of the RCMP?
Yeah.
How did that happen?" And you asked a question a little bit earlier about how do you change the people at the top who are causing this.
That's right.
And I'm an engineer, and I see things in engineering terms very often, and I always think of most organizations as a pyramid. And there's the top where these decisions are made, and then there's the large base at the bottom. And how do you shake up the organization? It's not by taking the tip of the pyramid and shaking it. It's by shaking the base.
That's right.
And everything starts to move. And that's essentially what we're doing. And I can tell you, I'm seeing it. Discussions we've had with the police, with individual members, We're trying to have some educational sessions for police officers as well.
Right, you had said that.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, and we're working towards it. You know, folks are afraid, and so we're dealing with that. But again, if you want to shake up the pyramid, you shake the base, and that's what we're trying to do. And you know, I don't know what orders are going to come down. We have a new, I don't know if you call him commissioner, but we have a new head of D Division RCMP now in Winnipeg. I don't know that person. I haven't spoken directly. If that person would like to discuss this with me, I'm more than open. You can. I'm sure you have my phone number. And I'm absolutely certain that you have my email address. Be more than happy to meet with you at a neutral location.
Well, let's do that right here on the show. Right here. I'm happy to have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're open to this. We've got nothing to hide. We're not hooligans. We're citizens. We're taxpayers. We're mothers and fathers and brothers and workers. And we have real concerns. And I know the RCMP members and the police, Winnipeg police members and the police services across the country, they have those questions too. And it's time for you to stand with us.
Absolutely. Well said. I think that's a great place to end the interview, unless you've got something else you want to discuss.
No, well, just one thing.
Sure.
Everyone, don't expect someone else to do this for you. I get phone calls constantly. I had one yesterday. A fellow wanted to talk to me. He got some information from someone else, and they got a hold of me yesterday, and they were talking. And I said, well, you know, you're so frustrated. You want to do something. Come down and meet us on September the 3rd. And, you know, there was hesitation there. This won't be done by the other person. This has to be done by you. You need to take the time. We've created a toolbox for you on our website at thetruefactc19.com. Come there, use it. We've made it as easy as possible. If you have questions, you can talk to us, but get up, turn off the TV, and come join us on September 3rd.
It's going to be an investigation into alleged criminal actions during COVID-19. You need to get there September the 3rd, 1 o'clock, 1091 Portage Avenue, at the RCMP D Division Detachment. And Ken, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I want to continue to wish you all the success in the world. Everything you've done is very uplifting for a lot of people who have been down in the past couple of years. The people that have been down are going through some tough times right now, and it's people like you who provide them with some support, some backbone, some inspiration, and some hope.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Pleasure.